Yes, the cryptosphere is mysterious. Most of us are preoccupied with sifting through those tea leaves to try and work out which altcoin is going to explode next. Am I right? However, beneath all that market noise and hubbub lurks some really head-scratching mysteries. Now, some of those could affect your portfolio. Some are potentially cold case murders, and some alleged disappearances could just be some of the biggest scammers in history getting away scot-free. In this video, I'm going to look at the 5 biggest mysteries in the cryptoverse. And knowing all this may also help you learn how to spot scam artists, save that portfolio from a black swan event, or potentially warn off any would-be scammer from doing the wrong thing. So if you want to learn more about the dark side of crypto and want to hear about a mystery concerning this crypto guy, then you'll want to stick around. Before I unload those knowledge bombs, I do need to come clean on a few things. Now, ever since I was a young whippersnapper, I dreamed of becoming a financial advisor. To go to work in a suit, earn ridiculous amounts of money, drive a fancy car, and have fabulous hair. Now, sadly, that childhood dream never came true, and that means that I am no financial advisor. Hence, everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Now, with that letdown out of the way, I want to welcome anyone new to the Bureau. My channel is full of top-notch crypto content. That includes the most important news, analysis, and reviews to hit the blockchain. So, if that is something you would like to avail yourself of, please acquaint yourself with that subscribe button. Give it a click and ping that bell to make sure that you're the first to know when we release another video. And one final thing, behold the timestamps I have put in the timeline. Use them if you're short on time and want to skip ahead to the crypto mystery that interests you the most. Okay, ready to solve some mysteries? Get your shovel out and let's start digging. The first records of incidents that meet the definition of a Ponzi scheme date back to the late 1860s. They have certainly been around for a while. However, in the last 150 or so years, a few have hoovered up more than $1 billion. I mean, that's the sort of mind-boggling money that I hope my ADA position will be worth in 20 years' time. On a serious note, a $1 billion Ponzi is super rare, and the crypto Ponzi scheme, OneCoin, managed to defraud hapless investors of an alleged $4 billion worldwide. To put that into context, that's about the same amount of money it would cost to buy Manchester United Football Club or the New York Giants if you're into American football. So yes, we're talking about a heck of a lot of money here. OneCoin was founded all the way back in 2014, and it was claimed that the first OneCoin was mined back in January 2015. But here was the problem. There was no public or private blockchain and no real tech to speak of, a bit of an issue for a self-proclaimed cryptocurrency. Instead, what OneCoin had was a charismatic founder called Dr. Ruja, who was fluent in several languages, reportedly had an Oxford University degree, and who had appeared on magazine covers like the Bulgarian issue of Forbes. Yes, there were fancy OneCoin events attended by cult-like OneCoiners, where Dr. Ruja talked about the financial revolution, how OneCoin was going to bank the unbanked, and how OneCoin was a Bitcoin killer. All that was wrapped up with a good dose of bank bashing to boot. However, most people who got involved with OneCoin had no idea about the tech, or lack of tech, behind the project. Most people didn't even understand what cryptocurrency actually was. All they believed was that OneCoin was the next Bitcoin and that it was a way for them to get rich. So, if you were ever wondering why I like to deep dive into a crypto project's tech in my coin reviews, it's to help level up that sort of knowledge so you cannot be sold empty pipe dreams like OneCoin. One major red flag was that OneCoin was never listed on any public crypto exchange. That meant there was never a real price for OneCoin, and instead it was worth whatever Dr. Ruja said it was. That meant that OneCoin holders were misled into believing their investment was going to the moon. Simple but effective, if you ask me. But how did people get OneCoins? Well, there was a fake affiliate program where people like you and me could sell OneCoin packages to friends and family. In return, the seller would get a commission, 60% in euros and 40% in tokens. Those packages were given cool-sounding names like the Executive Trader Package or the Infinity Trader Package. So, That incentivized lots of regular people to sell OneCoin packages to their mates and line the pockets of Dr. Ruja. In reality, these packages, which could top 27,500 euros, were completely worthless. Needless to say, OneCoin holders were keen to see their coin trading on a normal public exchange, which would allow them to trade their tokens for other cryptos and even fiat. That was all explained away, with Dr. Ruja preaching her Bitcoin killer revolution in places like London, Sofia, Dubai, and countless other locations. That was until October 2017, when she was meant to show up at an event in Lisbon. The OneCoin cult there waited expectantly for Dr. Ruja to appear on stage, but she never showed up. The last record that the FBI has was Dr. Ruja booking a flight from Sofia to Athens, and she has vanished off the face of the planet ever since. Some say Dr. Ruja is hiding in Athens, others believe she is in Sofia being protected by powerful people, and others speculate she's using Russian and Ukrainian passports to travel back and forth from Dubai and Russia. Another theory is that Dr. Ruja is hiding in plain sight thanks to plastic surgery that makes her unrecognizable. Some say she is dead, which is, of course, a possibility. Private investigator Alan McLean believes that people should be looking at Dr. Ruja's life before OneCoin and find out about her friends and family. He also suggests that the police should take the tracker off her yacht and find out where she's been. And finally, he recommends that people should check which yachts were bought in Athens at around the time of her disappearance. Perhaps Dr. Ruja is moving and sailing around the Mediterranean. Whatever the case, Dr. Ruja is still at large and appears to have got away with one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in history. Now, what this mystery goes to show is that it can be easy to buy the promises and rhetoric of charismatic people, for your judgment to be clouded by greed. It also shows why it's probably a good idea to have a basic understanding of the tech behind a cryptocurrency before throwing any of your hard-earned money at it. Seriously, folks, be skeptical about what people in crypto tell you. Don't even take my word for anything, and always do your own research. Now, my second crypto mystery involves what was once one of the largest crypto exchanges in Canada. A story about how its founder allegedly died, with hundreds of millions of dollars of investors' funds vanishing into the ether. Gerald Cotton was the founder and CEO of the Canadian Bitcoin exchange Quadrigua CX, which collapsed in January of 2019. Gerald basically ran the exchange from a laptop with trade volumes of over $1 billion. Not only that, but subsequent to his death, it was disclosed that the exchange had no bank accounts and no accountant. Of course, people who used the exchange obviously had no idea of this. Then in 2018, the crypto markets started collapsing, and that meant users were withdrawing their funds off the exchange. Many traders started to complain of long withdrawal times, with those with larger withdrawals waiting for weeks. That was due to Quadrigua using third-party payment processors, some of which were pretty dodgy themselves. All that meant that it was pretty hard to discern who owned these funds, and that resulted in the CIBC freezing the bank account of one of the main payment processors. That account held about $25 million. So you had those frozen funds, falling crypto markets, and ever increasingly frustrated traders. Then rumors started circulating about Quadrigua having liquidity problems. It's against that backdrop that Gerald Cotton took a honeymoon to India with his wife, Jennifer Robertson. Allegedly, he died on that honeymoon in Jaipur on the 9th of December 2018. Yes, that seems tragic, and it was claimed that Gerald had died from complications from Crohn's disease. What people didn't know, though, is that Gerald was the only one that had access to those private keys. This meant that on one of Gerald's encrypted laptops, there was around 250 million Canadian dollars worth of crypto owned by Quadrigua users. It wasn't until January 2019 that the Quadrigua CX board of directors announced that they were closing the exchange down, filing for creditor protection, and revealing that they didn't have access to the private keys of that crypto owned by users. So, the official story from Quadrigua was that they were technically insolvent. They'd lost access to $250 million and that their customers had lost a load of funds. Yes, some of those dodgy payment processors stole millions as well. The CIBC seized about 21 million Canadian dollars, and a software glitch led to a $14 million loss. However, the exchange should have had about $200 million in cold storage. However, within a month of Cotton's reported death, it was proven that almost all of these inaccessible wallets were empty. If that's not shocking enough, it turned out that Cotton had taken some of those Quadrigua user deposits to trade on margin at other exchanges. Perhaps he was trying to recoup money and digging himself further into a hole. But here's the question: did Cotton actually pass away in India? Many people are not so sure. The official Indian death certificate spelt his surname wrong. People also started to point out that India was perhaps one of the best places in the world to fake your own death, as getting your hands on fraudulent paperwork was incredibly easy and cheap. Indeed, it turns out that the Delhi region, 250 kilometers north of Jaipur, is notorious for insurance fraud. There are actually numerous other reasons to suspect that Gerald Cotton isn't actually dead and instead faked everything in a bid to get away with an elaborate scheme. For example, it turns out that Cotton had conducted a bunch of exit scams in the past. One of those was Midas Gold, which was a service that basically facilitated money laundering and took a percentage of every transaction. Even as far back as 2003, this bloke had been creating websites devoted to high-yield investment programs or ponzi schemes. So yes, it turns out that Cotton had a history of scamming people. The next thing that doesn't add up is that Cotton allegedly mentioned having a safe bolted to the rafters in his attic, which was used to store the private keys for crypto wallets. One contractor went around to his house after his death, only to find that the safe was gone. Then you have people like Eric Schletz, who claimed to see Cotton walking through an airport with $50,000 in cash. There are rumors of other employees taking similar trips. Do that enough times and it's more than possible that Cotton had stowed away a fortune in offshore bank accounts in preparation for an exit. Jennifer van der Veer, the lead investigator from the FBI's cybercrime division, also mentioned that it was possible to use high-volume trades to launder funds. That could shed new light on Cotton's crazy margin trades on other exchanges. There were even calls in 2019 for Cotton's body to be exhumed to prove his death. But that morbid proof hasn't come to pass yet. All that means that the jury is still out on if Gerald Cotton is really dead or not. Maybe he has a new name, a new face, and is whiling away his days on some super yacht somewhere. One thing is for sure, though. If Gerald really is alive, then he has to go down as one of the biggest criminal masterminds in history. If you're interested in learning more about Quadrigua CX, then you'll want to click the video over here. The lesson to be learned from the Quadrigua CX saga is to be really careful about which exchange you use and how it's super important not to keep all your funds on an exchange. Not your keys, not your crypto. If you want to store your crypto in the safest way possible, then I'd recommend that you get your hands on a Trezor hardware wallet. Seriously, folks, it's the most secure way to store your crypto that money can buy. A link to that is in the description. Next, I want to tell you about perhaps the biggest mystery in crypto, and that would be who the heck invented Bitcoin. Seeing that you're watching this video, you know full well what Bitcoin is. But have you stopped to think about who invented it? Well, that would be Satoshi Nakamoto. But the thing is, no one really knows who this anonymous genius really is. No one really knows how many Bitcoins Satoshi holds, but estimates place that at around 1 million BTC, a princely sum indeed, and enough to make him one of the richest people on the planet. What's even crazier is that none of those coins have ever been moved. Now, if I had that sort of money lying around, I seriously doubt that I would have the self-control to stop myself from spending at least a bit of it. Here's the deal. On April the 23rd, 2011, Satoshi left us forever in a brief email saying, quote, "I've moved on to other things," and that the future of Bitcoin was in good hands. Then, just like that, the creator of Bitcoin vanished in a puff of smoke. Since then, many people have tried to work out who Satoshi really is, and there is a seemingly never-ending stream of candidates, each with some really compelling evidence to support their claim as the real Satoshi. That includes the likes of Dorian Nakamoto, early Bitcoin contributor Hal Finney, cypherpunk Nick Szabo, crime boss Paul LaRue, and the cryptography genius Adam Back. Now, I've actually done an in-depth 2-part series on these Satoshi candidates, so I would recommend you watch part 1 over here if you want to dive down that rabbit hole. The mystery that is Satoshi has somewhat troubled me for years. On the one hand, I'm really intrigued to find out who created one of the biggest gifts humanity has ever received. On the other hand, Satoshi wanted to stay anonymous for a reason, and that is something to be respected. I guess we can say we're all Satoshi. Yes, that sounds poetic, but I really would love to know who to thank for one of the greatest technological inventions of our time. My next crypto mystery involves one of the most highly traded cryptos on the market. It also has the potential to drive those crypto markets through the floor. That would be Bitfinex and Tether. Let's take a look, shall we? Most of you will know that USDT or Tether is the most popular stablecoin in crypto right now and has the most trading pairs. So, how big is USDT? Well, at the time of shooting this video, it's got a market cap of around $46 billion. What's important to note, though, is that Tether issues USDT and is the sister company of the Hong Kong crypto exchange Bitfinex, which launched in 2013. Both of these entities are owned by Ifinex, which was founded back in 2012. Another thing to note is that Tether, Bitfinex, and Ifinex all have overlapping executives. What's incredible is that the link between Tether and Bitfinex was denied until the Panama Papers leak in 2016 let the cat out of the bag. Speaking of which, I've actually done a deep dive into the Panama Papers, so if you want to learn more about that, then you'll want to check out the video over here. So, what is the mystery here? Well, as a stablecoin, every USDT issued should be backed 1-to-1 with an equivalent dollar in a bank account. So, for all the USDT in circulation, there should have been hundreds of millions stored in offshore bank accounts. Now, here is where things get spicy. The Bitfinex exchange also had to have dollar balances at banks in order to meet their fiat on-ramp and off-ramp requirements. Well, in 2017, Bitfinex had about $850 million of corporate and user funds with a Polish bank under the control of Crypto Capital Corp. However, those bank accounts were subsequently frozen by Polish regulators, which meant that Bitfinex lost access to all of this money. How do you meet the shortfall? Well, according to an allegation by the New York Attorney General, Bitfinex turned to its sister company. It claimed that Bitfinex used some of the funds which were meant to be held exclusively as backing for the outstanding USDT. That meant that every USDT in circulation was no longer backed 1-to-1 by a US dollar. Suspicions were raised again when Tether actually changed some of the wording on its website. It placed the following quote: "Every Tether is always 100% backed by our reserves, which include traditional currency and cash equivalents, and from time to time may include other assets and receivables from loans made by Tether to third parties, which may include affiliated entities." So, that would have meant that all the USDT in circulation wasn't backed 1-to-1 by dollars. Food for thought. Now, more recently, Tether has settled the case with US authorities and they've issued an official attestation as to the value of their reserves. Of course, a settlement does not clear a party of guilt, and an attestation is not the same as an audit, but it's a step in the right direction. It also does not answer whether Tether was always backed, even before Bitfinex had those bank seizures. Moreover, there are still widespread allegations that USDT is used to manipulate crypto prices. This is why market participants constantly monitor Tether prints in order to determine whether Bitcoin trading volumes are likely to pump. I've already done a comprehensive video all about Tether and Bitfinex, so if you want to learn more about that, then click the video over here. Honestly, there are still so many questions about USDT. Another one is whether a Chinese government ban of USDT could be a black swan event that sucks BTC liquidity out of the market. This is because Tether is the largest BTC trading pair out there, and the overwhelming majority of that volume is from Chinese OTC traders. A ban like this is also not beyond the realms of possibility, especially given that the Chinese government is now intent on rolling out its own CBDC. So, keep an eye on that risk, as it really is a tale that I don't think the market is taking notice of. Anyway, on to my fifth crypto mystery, and it involves the most famous Ponzi scheme of them all. Bitconnect! Let's take a look. Now, most of you have probably heard about the multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme that was Bitconnect. So, what actually happened? Well, if you'd loaned Bitconnect over $1,010, then you'd be guaranteed a 0.1% daily interest, 0.2% if you supplied over $5,010, and a whopping 0.25% daily interest if you handed over more than $10,010. On top of that, Bitconnect's magic trading bot would generate you up to 40% returns per month too. So, if we were to annualize that daily 0.25% return, it would have compounded to 149% per year. Sounds fishy, right? That's, of course, also ignoring the added returns they claimed the bots generated. And this was all supercharged by a tiered referral system which gave the person at the top of the pile a 7% cut of all referral fees. Now, if that looks like a pyramid scheme to you, then you're exactly right. As they say, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's a pyramid scheme. Anyhow, I think you know how Bitconnect ended. Yep, it crashed and burned, leaving hundreds of thousands of mom-and-pop investors penniless. So, where is the mystery? Well, there are many questions as to who was behind it. Was it a bunch of promoters who worked together to knowingly defraud investors? Or were they also oblivious to the scam and also part of those who were duped? If that's the case, was there a mastermind behind it who was pulling the strings of these useful idiots like a puppeteer? There have been arrests made in connection with Bitconnect. Perhaps the most well-known was that of Divyesh Darji, who was accused of being a top promoter in Asia. But was he the mastermind? Unlikely, given the sprawling global scope of the scheme. I happen to think that we're likely to never know. If there really was someone smart enough to dupe promoters to market a Ponzi scheme, then he or she was smart enough to disappear with no trace. Maybe he and Gerald Cotton are sitting on Dr. Ruja's yacht off the coast of Greece, sipping some margaritas. Well, folks, that's about all I have time for today. However, I do want to share a few closing thoughts. Now, I've actually got a bonus mystery for you, and that would be, what moves is this crypto guy making in the markets? Well, if you ever wondered about that, then you'll want to join my Telegram channel using the link in the description below. Here, I keep you updated on all my personal trades and share my thoughts on the markets. So if that interests you, you know where to go now. Oh yes, it's completely free, so no excuses. On a more serious note, there are many fascinating mysteries plaguing the crypto markets. It just goes to show that there are some very unsavory characters lurking out there. So make sure to be on your guard and treat everything with a healthy dose of skepticism. All innovation goes through stages of cowboy capitalism. Those with bad intentions will use the public's lack of awareness to further their nefarious ploys to defraud. I do, however, think that we're at a stage right now where public education about crypto is such that scams as egregious as these are unlikely to proliferate en masse. And that's a win, in my opinion. Now it's time to hear your thoughts. What crypto mystery did you like the most? Have you got any questions? And while you're tapping away and making those top-notch comments, I need to let you know about my socials page. Click that link in the description and you'll find out where my Twitter, podcasts, and TikTok are. There is a ton of content there that you won't find elsewhere. And finally, if you found this video interesting, then pat this crypto champ on the back by patting that like button. If you love what I do on YouTube, then don't forget to subscribe and ping that bell while you're there. This is all from this crypto detective in a bizzle.